Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Peter. This video is the last and final part of my ultimate slug challenge, where I test 10 different kinds of slugs in my 700mm heavy liner that I've installed in the FX Impact M4. In my previous two videos I have tested the slugs in the 13 and the 16 grain range, so today I'm up for the big boys, testing the 20 grainers. And those are the ones from SAN, H&N and from NSA. I'll perform the test by shooting 4 targets like this. So that's 4 5-shot groups on each target. That's a total of 16 groups. When I'm done with the session, I'll take the best 6 group, calculate the average group size, and thereby have a result that I can compare to the rest of the slugs in the test. I'll perform the test at 2 different shooting ranges, and I'll set up the target at 100 yards. When I'm done shooting for today, I'll show you the results, and not only of the 20 grainers but also of the slugs in the 13 and the 16 grain range. So make sure that you stick around for that, and while we're at it, be sure to hit that subscribe button right down there in the corner. So why not jump right into it and start out with the 20 grainers from H&N. All the slugs will be shot with at least a few days in between them. I do this because I want to make sure that I have the right tune to get the best performance out of each slug. Whoa. Whoa. That's a good group. And what a spectacular session this was. This was an absolute pleasure to shoot this session. The group that you just saw me shooting was this one in the lower left corner, a 19mm group. And don't mind the writing is upside down. I mistakenly turned it the wrong way when I marked it. Looking at the rest of the groups here, you can see that there are some super groups, even groups that are better than the 19mm group that you saw me shooting, but somehow I messed up the footage, so yeah, you'll have to live with that. The best 6 groups of this session was groups of 18, 18, 19, 19, 22 and 24. So that's an average group size of 20 millimeters. So that is absolutely stunning. Now let's continue to my other range, where I tested the 20 grainers from SAN. Very nice. And a quite beautiful group, once again a 19mm group that you saw me shooting right there. But the session went a bit different than the one that I shot with the 20 grainers from H&N. Looking at all the targets here, you can see that there are quite far between the good groups, and the best 6 groups that I shot with the SANs are groups of the 19 that you saw me shooting there, 25, 27, 24, 24 and 30 millimeters. So that's an average of 24.83 millimeters. And I will be very honest to say that I really expected the SANs to perform better, but I really did my very best to get the best tune and the best accuracy out of them. But this was the result, so yeah, that's a result that I want to present to you. I've never tested the sands in this particular way, but I'm pretty sure that if I try some more, I can get some better results. So I wouldn't really say that the result of the 20 grainers here is super accurate, but anyway, that's a result of this test. But now let's move on to the 20.5 grainers from NSA. This is where I would love to have shown you some spectacular groups with the 20.5 grainers from NSA. But sadly, I've been struck by this deja vu-like thing because the 20.5 grainers from NSA didn't even make it past my shooting range back home at 34 meters. I simply could not get them to group. So the reason I say that this is like a deja vu thing is because I've tested those in a variety of different liners, and I have never had these slugs performing well in anything. But please note that I am not saying that these slugs are bad. I'm just saying that these slugs are not a match for the 700mm heavy liner or any other liner that I've tested them in. So sadly, I'll have to leave you with a big question mark for those because they couldn't be stabilized in the 700mm heavy liner. But maybe in a not too distant future, there will be a solution to this, because FX has recently released a new liner called the Slug liner with a different twist rate. The twist rate in the 18 in the heavy liner is 1 to 18, whereas in the Slug liner, which is actually the successor to the heavy liner, it is 1 to 16. So very excited to see if that will stabilize the 20 grainers from NSA, and of course to see how they perform with the rest of the slugs. So maybe a slug test like this is in the horizon somewhere. But anyway, let's jump into a conclusion. I keep on saying that this is a conclusion, but I don't know if this is the right word, so I'll say that this is where I present you with the results. Let's start out with the slugs, the lightest slugs, the ones in the 13 grain range. In this range, I tested the 12.5 grainers from NSA, the 13 grainers from H&N and from SAN, and the 13.43 grain JSB knockouts. The one with the best average group size was the 12.5 grainers from NSA, and they had an average group size of 18.67 millimeters, and that was actually the best average group size of the whole test. In that test, the best group was at 14 millimeters, and it had 3 groups below 20 millimeters at 100 yards. Next up were the knockouts with an average group size of 21 millimeters. They had their best group at 17 millimeters, and that was the only one below 20 millimeters in that test. Next up were the 13 grainers from SAN. They had an average group size of 25.5 millimeters, and also here the best group was a 17 millimeter group, and that was the only one below 20 millimeters in that test. The last slug that I tested in the 13 grain range was 13 grainers from H&N, and they had an average group size of 25.67 millimeters, and the best group that I shot with those were at 23 millimeters, so no groups below 20 millimeters in that test. Next up are the slugs in the 16 grain range, and in this test I was testing the 15 grainers from NSA and the 16 grainers from H&N and from SAN. And the best performing slug in this test was, not to my biggest surprise, the 16 grainers from SAN, my favorite slug in the whole world. They had an average group size of 20.25 millimeters, and the best group that I shot with those was at 13 millimeters, and that was also the best group of the whole test of all 10 slugs. there were in that test 3 groups below 20 millimeters. The next one was the 15 grainers from NSA. They had an average group size of 20.66 millimeters, and the best group that I shot with those was at 14 millimeters, and they also had 3 groups below 20 millimeters, like with the the 16 grainers from SAN. The last slug in that range was the 16 grainers from H&N, and they performed much better than I have ever shot them before. They had an average group size of 21.83 millimeters, and they had their best group at 20 millimeters. So sadly, no sub 20 millimeter groups for that slug. The last weight range of slugs are the 20 grainers, and in that test, as you've seen in this video, I shot the 20 grainers from SAN and from H&N, and sadly the 20.5 grainers from NSA didn't even make it to the range. So the best performing slug in this test was actually the 20 grainers from H&N with an average group size of 20 millimeters. They had their best group at 18 millimeters, and they shot 4 groups below 20 millimeters. So that's the best result if you look at the number of groups below 20 meters in this whole test. Next up were the 20 grainers from SAN. They had an average group size of 24.83 millimeters, and they had 1 group below 20 millimeters with a group of 19 millimeters. Now we could be tempted to make a list with the best performing slug at the top and the loser at the bottom, but I'm not sure that this is the right way to approach this. Instead, I think there are a number of questions that we should be asking ourselves, and those could be: what are we planning to use this particular slug for? Are we shooting indoors, outdoors? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it windy? Is it not? And what is the distance? Are you shooting bench, or are you shooting for hunting purposes? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself. The best performing slug, no doubt, was 12.5 grain slug from NSA, but when you take a look at the target here, you can see that there were some spectacular groups, no doubt about it, but also there were some pretty big groups. And what I noticed was that even though it was a day with practically no wind, when there was a gust of wind coming through, it threw off the groups quite a bit. So, for instance, that slug I would not use on a windy day, and I'm not sure that I would be using any slug in the 13 grain range on 100 yards. Perhaps up to, I don't know, I'm just saying a number, 80 yards. Maybe that would be the limit, and within that distance, I think that the slugs in the 20 grain, the 13 grain range would be extremely good. But then again, is it windy? Is it not? What are you using it for? So I'm just presenting you with the result of this test, and I think that you would benefit from asking yourself those particular questions. As for myself, even though this NSA slug was performing so extremely well, I'm not sure that this is the one that I'll be using, because even though, as you can see, this range is pretty well sheltered, there are some days where there is wind coming through, and I would need a heavier slug for that, or I'll need to shoot at a shorter distance. I know that you'll be asking which slug that I'll prefer, and Yeah, it is of course the 16 grain slug from sand, because it seems to be the most consistent slug of them all, everything taken into consideration. I'm not hunting because it's legal with a 177 here in Denmark, so I'm only shooting bench. But if I was to go into a hunting situation, of course it depends on the prey that I'll be hunting. Yeah, I would probably go for a heavier slug. No doubt that the heavier slugs with the higher BC would be perhaps very good for bench as well, but as we still have this 1 in 18 twist heavy liner, I'm not sure that we are getting the maximum potential out of these heavier slugs. But with the 1 in 16 new twist rate on the new slug liner, I hope that will solve this problem. Well, not that it's a problem, because both the H&N and the sands, even though they didn't perform too well in this test, has shown some pretty amazing results. So yeah, maybe just the new liner will make him better. We'll know in a not too distant future, hopefully. So one last thing that I do want to focus on, just to get my head around choosing the right slug. Take a look at this. This is the average group size of all the slugs in the test. Not all the slugs, but the different weight ranges. So the slugs in the 13 grain range had an average group size of 22.71 millimeters, whereas the 16 grainers had an average group size of 20.91, and the 20 grainers, not speaking about the NSAs, of course, had an average group size of 22.41. So the group size that I would prefer for the needs that I have shooting bench, primarily at 100 yards and maybe even beyond, my preferred weight range would be the 16 grain range, and of course the 16 grain slugs from sand would be my preferred slug. So that was the end of a very, very long and exhausting test. I hope you made it through all the way, and I really hope that you can use these results for something. That's all I had to say. So if you have questions, be sure to ask them in the comment section below. But make sure to watch the whole video, and perhaps also my previous 2 videos before asking. I spend a lot of time answering questions, not only here on YouTube, but also on Facebook and other places as well. So in case that somebody asks me a question that is obviously answered in a video, it's not sure that I'm taking my time to repeat myself. So please watch the entire video before you ask questions, and if it's relevant, I'll be more than happy to answer. So that's all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed this series of slug tests. So until next time, take care and shoot safe.